with the performance of their defensive backfield. And so they think they're going to upgrade somehow. But the timing, to me, is curious. Sure, you still have the draft coming up, but the best corners, Gilmore, Butler, they're gone already. They've been messing around with Romo and that whole situation, and so they're at the moment on the hook for that money. Instead of having cleared that somehow, come to some arrangement, they don't have that money to spend, and not only that, the premier corners are gone. So maybe they're trying to improve in their defensive backfield, but at this point, given what they have to spend, what's on the market, boy, they better hit in the draft. Because it's possible, though hard to imagine, they could even get worse there, Ryan.
Well, if you look at this team and kind of the stats that you heard Stephen A. speak of, it was largely because of the secondary, mainly the corner position with Morris Claiborne actually playing well early on in the season. Then he got hurt, and he missed the most of the end of the season. Anthony Brown was a rookie. Orlando Scandrick was coming off injury. I thought Barry Church early on in the season before his injury played really well. And then J.J. Wilcox, who filled in for him at free safety, played excellent. He was a physical presence in the defensive backfield. I really expected them to sign at least one of those guys to kind of have some carryover. Morris Claiborne hasn't lived up to his number 6 pick that he was in the draft, and so I kind of expected them to move on from him. You expect Orlando Scandrick to be better this year now that he's not coming off of injury. This is one of the deepest cornerback safety drafts that we've had in a long time, and so I expect them to go out and try to get some of those draft picks to implement right away into the secondary. And we've seen many teams do this recently, whether you look at Vernon Hargrave starting in Tampa Bay last year, Jalen Ramsey starting in Jacksonville. So we've seen young guys come in, play, and take a lot of snaps. If you're the Dallas Cowboys, how much worse can it get, though?
So you're saying, is this a smart move, then?
It's
get rid of these guys.
Listen,
and
I think Barry Church and J.J. Wilcox, it would have been smart to keep one of those guys because they actually did play well. They actually did provide leadership. When you look at Brandon Carr, you look at Morris Claiborne, those guys haven't played up to the type of deals they were requesting, to the type of expectations that will be placed on them, first of all, because of the experience, secondly, because of the money that they will want. And so moving on for them, I think, is a smart idea. You're not a team that goes out and tries to play man-to-man constantly under defensive coordinator Rob Marinelli. So for me, it's not necessarily a terrible thing, but it's what you do from here moving forward. Will you be that accident waiting to happen like Stephen A. always says, or will you make the right decisions in replacing these people?
Furthermore, of course you want a good defense, Stephen A. Of course you want your defense to get better, not worse, and their defense was bad last year. But the whole point of the Cowboys is their offense is designed to mitigate the damage that the defense does or doesn't prevent because it's ball control. Big, excellent offensive line, great running back, smart quarterback. That keeps the offense on the field and the defense off of it. They won 13 games last year and gave away some games at the end of the season, in spite of that defense.
Well, let's call it what it is. First of all, the Dallas Cowboys had the number 2 ranked running attack in the NFL. So you're chunking, you're accumulating yards, you're moving the chains, right? As a result, in most instances, if I recall correctly, Ryan, the Dallas Cowboys were very adroit at being the first to score for a vast majority of the season. So people always found themselves playing in a hole. This is why the same Dallas Cowboys defense that we're talking about, they're ranked 5th overall, they also ranked number 1 against the rush. Why? Because people weren't trying to run the football on them, but so much they were trying to throw the ball all day long because they were usually playing from behind because of how potent Dallas's offense was. That could be somewhat deceptive in terms of the statistic being ranked 26. If somebody's throwing the football against you all day and accumulating 4,100 plus yards passing against you, they're putting forth a lot of attempts as well. Why? Because they're playing from behind. So it's not necessarily just about the secondary. It is about a suspect pass rush at times that you can't. I mean, if you're giving quarterbacks all day to stand back, take pictures, call their girlfriends or their wives, can I get some dinner? Let's make plans for the evening while you're standing in the pocket before throwing a damn pass. Of course it's going to be a problem for the secondary. But we gloss over that because it's always an excuse when it comes to these damn Cowboys. There's always an excuse. There's always an explanation for their ineptitude. There's got to be a reason. I mean, it's Brandon Carr and it's Morris Claiborne. So now they're the culprits. Never mind you were bragging about them along with Scandrick and everybody else. Oh, no. They were going to be just fine. But then you're struggling. It's got to be somebody else's fault. other than the overall organizational structure of this team. This is what happens when you're the Cowboys. We're talking about the secondary today. It'll be the defensive line next week. It'll be the wide receiving corps next month. It'll be something.
Steven, it's the defense as a whole. You talked about the pass rush. It was hard for them to get pressure on quarterbacks, which we saw Aaron Rodgers take advantage of in the playoff game. They didn't lose that game because of Dak Prescott and the offense and having rookies in the backfield. They lost because they couldn't produce stops. And I think looking at that, why bring back the same people? I'm sure they tried to keep Barry Church at a price. I'm sure they tried to keep J.J. Wilcox at a price. They didn't want to pay what these guys were looking for. And so with the draft being so deep, having some guys already on the roster that did play a lot of ball last year, you think move forward, let's get some new pieces to the puzzle in this defensive backfield and try to build from there.
That's more than anything what the NFL is in a hard cap league is properly pricing commodities. Do not overpay. That's what Belichick and the Patriots show more than anything. Well, Jamie Collins isn't a Patriot anymore. Malcolm Butler's not a Patriot anymore. Even good players they may otherwise want to keep. If they ask for too much or they think they're not worth it, if they can find something cheaper, that's what they're going to do. That is smart. That approach is smart by the Cowboys.
Well, let's move on after Stephen A's last comment.
It's so nice of you, Max Kellerman, to speak of the intellect and intelligence of the Dallas Cowboys. Good luck with holding that water for but so long, okay? And back to you, Ryan Clark. You did sit up there and say that the Dallas Cowboys couldn't get any stops. I recall them being down 21-3, okay, in a playoff game against Green Bay. And they came back and ultimately tied it at 28 apiece. I thought they got some stops when they needed to, but ultimately it fell apart.
Did they play the next week? So they didn't get stops when they needed to.
I'm just making the point that they made it interesting, and then something went wrong.
And Aaron Rodgers is a great offensive line, and he's the best quarterback ever. I mean, like, you know, you can forgive them for maybe not.
Okay, I'm done.
I'm
stopping.
Come on. There's more we got to get into. Who wins championships, though? You should know this is better than anyone.
Defense.
The defense. So let's spin it forward to how these departures essentially will affect Dallas in their division. So last season, as you mentioned, the Cowboys finished in first at 13-3. New York Giants went 11-5. The Redskins came in third at 8-7-1, and the Eagles finished last at 7-9. Max, based on these defensive losses, are the Cowboys still the favorites in the NFC East right now?
Yes, they are, and it kills me to say that. I want to sit here and tell you the New York Football Giants, the defense is excellent. And obviously, the pickup of Brandon Marshall, even though they're already good at receiver, makes them probably the best in the NFL at receiver. Here's the problem with the Giants. They have still not addressed their offensive line. And ultimately, it's hard to imagine the Cowboys' secondary being even worse. But even if it is slightly worse, and the defense is slightly worse, as I mentioned, they're a ball control offense, probably the best offensive line in the game. Great running back, excellent quarterback. That's how they win. Though the Giants match up well with them, they don't match up well with the rest of the NFC compared to the Cowboys. Here's the Giants' offensive line right now. They signed T.J. Fluker, who's been a bust so far. That's why he was available. If they put him at right guard and move Eric Flowers to right tackle, Richburg and Pugh are good at center and left guard. They still need a left tackle. Clady is available, I guess, still, but he can't stay on the field. Very difficult to find a left tackle in the draft who's ready to play now. So it's and that's assuming that Flowers can play right tackle and Fluker can be pretty good because he's so big and he has untapped potential. The Giants' offensive line was their Achilles heel last year, and they still haven't addressed it. So it's the Cowboys still number one by a little bit less than they were.
Max is the only dude on the planet Earth that I know that would sit up there and say that the Dallas Cowboys are the favorite, and I can't remember a damn thing he said about the Cowboys because he spent the whole damn time talking about the Giants. Let me be very, very clear. The New York Giants are the favorites in the NFC East. Why?
Buddy.
Because when you look at a quarterback in Eli Manning who hasn't missed a start in 12 years, and you combine that with the wide-out weapons that we have, somebody that Max Kellerman calls one of the top 3 receivers in the world, which I don't think we can disagree with an Odell Beckham Jr. You combine that with Sterling Shepard, and then you go and you add Brandon Marshall. Of course, they got to buffer their offensive line. But this is the NFC East we're talking about here, and I'll defer to Ryan in this regard, who, for some inexplicable reason, decided to tarnish his career by becoming a Redskin. I don't ever understand why he would do such a thing, but that's a subject for another day.
I was a Redskin first, Stephen A.
Whatever. The point that I'm trying to make is you would know about the NFC East, so I'm going to defer to you, but I will say this. I'm looking at the Redskins, question marks about Cousins because of how they handled him and whether or not he's going to really want to be there, even though he's going to be there because he signed that franchise tag. Deshaun Jackson's gone. Pierre Garçon is gone. You've got to wonder about Jordan Reed, Matt Jones. You got to wonder about Doxson and Crowder and these boys, even though I like Crowder a lot. But the rest of their receiving core is a question mark along with their defense. I'm looking at the Eagles. I like what they did with Alshon Jeffrey. I get all of that, but there's still too many question marks. When I look at the Dallas Cowboys, damn it, they're the Cowboys. They're an accident. I look at the New York Giants, and I'm thinking about the potency of their offense and the reliability of their quarterback and a much improved defense. I think that obviously you got to modify some things with your offensive line, but in the end, that's not enough to offset the receiving weapons that they have. I think that will be enough in a tough NFC East to give the edge to the New York Giants as the favorites in that division.
Well, for me, Brandon Marshall, the pickup was huge because now it takes some of that pressure off of Odell. If you looked at this team's in times of trial, when you needed a big play, it seemed like the only person on the team that they trusted was Odell Beckham Jr. But also, even with all that firepower, I thought Sterling Shepard was a good player last year. He'll be even better this year. You add Brandon Marshall. You have to get a running game. You have to protect the quarterback. So to me, it still is the Dallas Cowboys that's the team to beat in the NFC East because they're the same team. We talked all earlier of this show about how the defense didn't stop anybody, how you could pass for a ton of yards. So for all intents and purposes, they haven't improved there, but that wasn't why they won. They won because of that rushing attack, because you had a quarterback who protected the ball. Oh, by the way, he has another year of experience. He's going into his second year with an offseason to learn more things. I think this offense will be even better in Dallas next year, and they will find some pieces to have some things on defense to get enough stops, to win enough games, to win the NFC East. I still think the New York Giants are the worst possible matchup for the Dallas Cowboys, but I think the Dallas Cowboys match up better against the rest of the NFC and the rest of the NFC East
and by the
than
way,
the Giants do
let's
right now.
not sleep on the Eagles because the Eagles got better, and let's not forget that when Lane Johnson was in the game, when he wasn't suspended, that was a nearly elite team last year. You can question the quality of opposition, but when you look at the point differential and all that, they were elite or next thing to it, a defense that was trending in that direction. And when Johnson came back at the end of the year, they started winning again. So that team, and then they just got better in the offseason, giving Carson Wentz a real weapon at receiver. And they're a terrible matchup for the Giants every year, it seems. And they beat the Cowboys late, though the Cowboys didn't have a lot to play for. You can't sleep on the Eagles.
The thing about the Eagles as well, it's about play calling, right? Does Doug Peterson do the right thing with Carson Wentz? You add Torrey Smith, you add Alshon Jeffrey. You have to find a back in the draft, and I think that's something they'll do. In the airport this week, I'm getting on the plane. Leonard Fournette's getting on the plane to Philadelphia, so it seems like they may be trending in that way.
Real quick question, Ryan, just to end this segment. Who did you pick in the playoffs between Green Bay and Dallas?
Oh, I can't remember, Stephen.
Oh, you can't remember, huh? It wasn't the Dallas Cowboys?
I can't remember.
Dallas Cowboys? I'm just checking.
Molly, this is a great segment.
I'm just asking
good segment, Molly.
I just want to know. I just want to know why you can't answer the question. What, you scared? You scared to answer the question? You scared? I mean, you can't tell us who you pick?
I don't remember.
You don't recall?
I don't recall.
You don't recollect?
The Dallas Cowboys.
You really?
All right.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Listen, Stephen A is the only one making sense this morning. That's all I know. Giants with the slight edge. Do enjoy the suit, though, and we'll see you on NFL Live later. Nice face. Ryan, thank you so much. Coming up, Steph Curry says he would give the MVP to James Harden. So how does Mr. Triple-Double feel about it?
Has anyone told you that Curry shared his opinion that it should be Harden because of where the Rockets are in the standings?
I don't care. It don't matter what he say. Who is he?
Hey, we'll dive into Russ versus Steph coming up. Plus,